لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله ما لنا رب سوى لا إله إلا الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون. So now, alhamdulillah, we are starting with the second chapter of the Quran, Surah Baqarah. As you know, Surah Baqarah is the longest surah of the Quran, so it takes many sessions to be able to cover even the discussions on Surah Baqarah. And there are some also discussions that Allama leaves for future. For example, about Alif Lam Mim, he doesn't study the meaning of these separated letters, huruf muqatta'a, and leaves it for Surah Shura, and he will study there. And he starts with giving a general idea about the content of the surah and then about the first few verses of surah. Of course, it's very difficult to give the whole content of such a long surah in few lines. It is more than two sections of the Quran. But Allama says, in general, this chapter is to address Allah's right of obedience. Allah has the right to be obeyed. We should obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one way of obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to follow the messages that He has sent to us and the prophets that He has sent to us without any discrimination. So right from the beginning, he's looking at the ending verses of the surah as well, that لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله. So we have to believe and follow all divine messages. We cannot say because we are Muslims, so we don't believe in previous prophets or previous revelations. Everything which has come from God must be respected and obeyed. Of course, this doesn't mean that they are all equally applicable to us. Some of them may be applicable to us, some of them may be applicable to a specific conditions which existed in the past. There may be some rulings that no longer, apply to us. But everything which is applicable, everything which was general, still is to be respected and obeyed, no matter who said this. Is it said by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ or by Jesus or Moses or any prophet? These are a spokesman of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and although they themselves are very much respected, but the main thing is that they speak on behalf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all the credit comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you believe in Allah, it shouldn't make difference for you whether the message is delivered to you by Mr. A or Mr. B, although these two may be different. So this is the general idea of surah, that we should obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should respect all the messages and the prophets without discrimination against anyone, and a kind of comparison between different groups of people: believers, hypocrites, those who have no faith, and also among the believers, those who believe in previous, religions and Muslims, so Ahlul Kitab and Muslims. So you find lots of comparisons between these different groups in this surah. In addition to these theological and moral discussions, there are also some discussions about practical rulings of Islam, and in particular, Allah refers, for example, to the ruling about direction of Mecca, the change of Qibla and direction for the prayer, rulings about Hajj, about inheritance, about fasting. So these are also mentioned in Surah Baqarah. So this is a general idea about Surah Baqarah. Something important is that since Surah Hamd, this is my, of course, idea. Since Surah Hamd is like opening for the Quran, so in a sense you can say the Quran actually starts from here. Like for example, you have an introduction or preface, but then after that you have the first chapter. So it seems that this is like the first chapter, the beginning of the main discussion is here. So Surah Hamd, in a sense, stands out. Is something not next to other surahs. It's like a summary of the whole Quran. So this is the beginning of the main discussion, and Allah, as it's very much understandable, starts with the Quran itself, because this is the beginning of the Quran, and the community who follow the Quran. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. So that is the book in which there is no doubt, and this is guidance for the people who are pious. So the significance of the book is so much that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins the book with reference to the book, in the same way that the revelation also started with Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. That is also reference to the recitation of the Quran. So Allah starts with the Quran and says that there is no raib in the Quran. Raib means most of the time baseless doubt. So normally when we use raib, it's different from shak. Shak can be genuine doubt and can be baseless. Sometimes you doubt without reason. Sometimes you doubt because you don't want to accept. One of the mechanisms that we use as human beings when we don't want to accept something or we don't want to commit ourselves is we try to deny. By denial, we want to get rid of responsibility. So how can you deny something that you know? It's not possible. So what you do is that you try to change from a state of knowing to a state of doubt. And this is possible. Don't say, when we know something, how can we doubt? Actually, it's possible. We human beings have the ability to create unnecessary doubt. And if you keep doing this, then you can never actually achieve certainty. So you can always remain in the state of doubt. So at the beginning, this doubt is not very strong. But if you keep doubting and doubting, then you really lose your certainty and you will remain always in doubt. So the Quran doesn't say there is no shak in the Quran. So people can have questions, genuine questions about the Quran. People can ask, is it really a book of God? And then you start proving for them. That's not a problem. But raib, something which is baseless, must not be allowed to happen when it comes to the Quran. Hudan lil muttaqin. One major discussion that Allama has is about this concept of hidayah, guidance. We had some discussion in Surah Hamd, but here Allama talks about two different types of hidayah. And that is the main point that we discuss here before reaching the point about philosophical discussion. Allama says that if you look at this, you find that the people who are benefiting from the Quran, they have already some type of guidance. Because Allah says, Hudan lil muttaqeen. But who are the muttaqeen? Ulaika ala hudan min rabbihim. So they have already some guidance, and therefore because of that guidance, they are believers, they do all those good actions that we are going to mention, and they have certainty. And then the Quran guides them further. So there are two levels of guidance. One guidance, Allama says, is the guidance which is based on fitrah. A person who is in the natural, God-given condition of the mind and the heart, has not deviated, has not polluted his heart, has not confused his mind, is in the God-given state, he has hidayah, he has light, he has ability to understand the things. And based on that, he comes to believe in God. Yeah? He comes to believe in God. He realizes that it's not a problem if you cannot see God, because he is humble, and he realizes that when something is there, it's there whether you can see it or not. So he has faith in the unseen. He tries to do good actions. He knows that his Lord has been, for example, very much helping him and giving him. So as a matter of thankfulness, he prays, he does all the good deeds. But then there is another step, and that is to go to a higher level of guidance. And that is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him further guidance, takes him to higher levels of Iman. So, La rayba fi hudan lil muttaqeen. This hudan lil muttaqeen refers to the additional extra guidance. For the people who are muttaqeen, the people who are pious, and these are mu'mineen. Allah says muttaqeen and mu'min are the same here. Who are muttaqeen? Who are the believers? Those who believe in the unseen, those who establish the prayer, those who give part of what Allah has given them as charity. If we say mimma means part. If we say mimma is for tabyin, means from what we have given them. So either it means part of it or from what we have given them, they give something for charity. Those who believe in what has been revealed to them through the Prophet and also what has been revealed before and have certainty. أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَىٰ هُدًى مِّن رَبِّهِمْ. These are the people that have some guidance from their Lord. So this is the initial guidance. Okay? In the same way, Allah says there are also two types of misguidance. One is an initial misguidance that some people have. They don't believe in God, and therefore they keep acting and living according to this, that means misguidance. Then they will be misguided even more. And he mentions some verses of some verses of the Quran. For example, Allah says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة. Allah says that He has sealed their hearts, but when it comes to their eyes and their vision, says وَعَلَىٰ أَبْصَارِهِمْ غِشَاوَةٌ. There is a kind of veil or a kind of cover on their eyes. So it means that their eyes are already covered and blocked. This is the first level of misguidance. And then the second is that ختم الله على قلوبهم. Their hearts are sealed. Or for example, في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا. So two levels. Or what we have in the case of Quran, that for example, even the Quran sometimes can misguide, or Allah misguides. How? The people who are misguided already and keep doing bad things, then they will be misguided further. This is possible. Allah says, يُزَلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَمَا يُذِلُّ بِهِ إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ. So those who are already fasiq, they are not muttaqi. Those who are muttaqi, Quran guides them further. Those who are fasiq, opposite to muttaqi, they will be misguided. Not that Quran really is a book of misguidance. Quran is a book of guidance, but because these people themselves are bad, so they oppose the light. When you oppose the light, you end up with being in a worse condition. Therefore, when, for example, you look at some people who didn't believe in God before Islam and those who didn't believe in God after Islam, whose condition is worse? Those who didn't believe in God after Islam. So, the advent of Islam and the revelation of the Quran led to their greater loss. Yeah? So they are in lower levels of, for example, hell, compared to the people who didn't believe before Islam, before revelation. So when Allah gives a blessing and you don't appreciate and you oppose it, then that blessing becomes niqmah for you. And you will end up with being in a worse condition. If Allah gives you an alim, for example, or any ni'mah of the guidance type, a book, an alim, a guide, an imam, ability to study, to go to hawza, anything like this. Or for example, if you live in a religious town and you don't appreciate that, then you will become worse than the people who don't have this ni'mah. So sometimes I say that in some religious towns you may find people who are worse than the people who are not in religious towns. Why? Because these people are different. Those people don't have this blessing. And these people have this blessing and they don't appreciate, so they become worse. Or sometimes in the family of the prophets or imams you find bad people. But these bad people are not normal bad people. These become really wicked people. Because they see that holy person and they are still bad. So this bad person is not like a bad person who lives far from a holy person. So, the Quran or God Himself may misguide. But this misguidance is because of the bad actions and condition of the people themselves. They are already misguided. They oppose the truth. They didn't want to have light. So Allah says He now seals their heart. Or Allah says He will misguide them.
But we have a hadith, very famous hadith from the Prophet says that every child is born in the fitra of
Yeah.
but his family changed him to be Christian or Jews. So every
Yeah, so we didn't say that they are born as kafir or fasiq. Initial misguidance, not initial condition. So I said those who are in the God-given condition, they are good. But some people themselves decide to be bad people. So this is initial bad condition, not the state of fitrah.
You mean the initial misguidance starts after being born?
Not right after type of birth. Later, when they are getting baligh and mature, they start developing bad habits, they become, bad people. So this is the beginning of misguidance. They keep going on the same route, then Allah misguides them even further. But to begin with, all human beings begin with light and begin with purity, and they have the ability to be good people. It's not that Allah creates some people as mu'min and some people as kafir. God-given condition is good.
Initial guidance is one step before the initial misguidance.
Yeah. Because in it, Enna hadaynahu sabil, this is for everyone. So first, every human being is offered guidance. Or for example, Allah says, وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَوْلِيَاؤُهُمُ الطَّاغُوتُ يُخْرِجُونَهُم مِّنَ النُّورِ إِلَى الظُّلُمَاتِ. It means that they have nur to begin with. But they will be taken then to darkness. So to begin with, everyone has enough understanding, enough desire for good, enough light. But then some people oppose this guidance, so it becomes the first level of misguidance. Then Allah sends Quran, for example, or a prophet or a message, they oppose it again, so this becomes the second level of misguidance.
It can be continued.
Pardon?
It can be continued. For example, third and fourth. This second is not the second that we say second. It is some.
Yeah, this by itself has many sub-levels. But then it reaches the level that everything is sealed and then cannot, be sorted out again. But it doesn't happen, in one day or 1 week. It may take several years. Sometimes may happen in one day, but normally it doesn't happen so quickly. So still, lots of occasions would come that this person would be given ability to repent, to return. Many, things that can happen to him, but he keeps ignoring them. And day by day, it becomes more difficult to return. So there are many different levels.
Don't you think that maybe this is not according to the justice of Allah?
Why?
Because Allah must leave him in his level now, not help him to go in a liar in the head.
Yeah, this is why I said this is the result of his action. You shouldn't think it in the way that God is misguiding him in order to harm him. It means that, in my understanding, it means that when you have a problem and you don't sort out this problem and stop it, it's natural that it will grow. And because we believe in Tawheed, we attribute this to God. So if I have a small disease and I don't solve this problem, day by day this can become worse. So you can say, God has made your disease worse. But indeed, you are to be blamed, not God. This is the nature of the world, that when there is a small problem, it can progress. If you don't stop it, it will progress. So when we say فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ فَزَادَهُمُ اللَّهُ مَرَضًا, I don't think it means that God will bring some illnesses and put in their heart. I think that it means that when the illness is not stopped, it becomes worse. So if I am a person who is proud, who is not humble, when I am a young talaba, it's much easier to sort it out than when I become, middle age or old. So this disease can progress. We can say God has progressed or has increased your disease, but not in the sense that God is to be blamed. It means that because you didn't stop this, this has happened naturally, and this can be attributed to God because He is the Lord of the world and everything can be attributed to Him. Or when you have a fire, another example is fire. If God forbids we have fire in one room and we don't extinguish the fire, then the fire will go everywhere and whole building will be burnt. So we can say God increased the fire, but in a sense, this doesn't mean that God is responsible for this fire. This is the nature of the fire, that when you don't stop it, it can grow.
So if it is natural, maybe Allah doesn't attribute to Him, because He say, "في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرض."
Yeah?
If Allah increasing the marad, I think this is not natural for Him.
Why?
Because Allah helped Him. No, you say that this is natural for him to increasing misguidance. Yeah, maybe you want to say this is
When there is a problem and you don't stop it, it grows. This is natural.
Yeah. So the starting of the problem is from himself,
Yeah.
and the growing is from himself. So why?
And growing is himself along with a natural law
So why Allah
that
attribute
problems can increase, can grow.
So yes, but Allah attribute to Himself.
Yeah,
To Allah.
Everything can be attributed to God.
No. so starting of the misguidance maybe is attributed to Allah.
Even that can be attributed to God, but we don't attribute that to God.
Why Allah don't?
Because if we attribute that also to God, then the initial role of the person would be clouded and, covered. Therefore, we don't attribute that one to God. Otherwise, everything is an act of God. Normally, we don't attribute directly our voluntary actions to God. Normally. But you can. And therefore, God says that, for example, this is a guidance لمن شاء منكم أن يستقيم وما تشاءون إلا أن يشاء الله. So even the first guidance is an act of God. But does it mean that you don't have responsibility?
Maybe you want to say that this is a kind of وما رميت إذ رميت ولكن الله رمى. Yeah, a kind of تويدات Ali.
Yeah, but it's more than that. ما رميت إذ رميت ولكن الله رمى refers to the same action. Here we have outcomes of action. So outcomes of action also can be attributed to God or to us. So I have done this to myself that my illness has increased. But at the same time, we can attribute it to God. Because we can attribute everything to God.
I think
But from a, educational point of view, normally we don't emphasize on the first misguidance to be from God. Because people then may use it as a, kind of way to justify their problem. Mostly what we have in the Quran is the second misguidance is attributed to God to frighten people. That if you keep doing bad things, then God comes and, increases your problem. So be very careful about this.
I think Allah wants to say that this level of misguidance is more than that level. Allah want to say.
I accept it is more than that.
Yeah. No. Allah want to say that if you start to misguidance, maybe you get a kind of fighter with me, with Allah, because إن ربك لبالمرصاد, because يخادعون Allah, and after that, if you are a fighter with Allah, Allah fight with you. This is a kind more than this misguidance that you say.
Even those that Allah fights with them, how does Allah fight with them?
Yeah, I accept this.
It's the same concept. How do you interpret that? Does Allah want bad for me?
Yes, because he is the fighter of Allah.
No. Indeed, you are fighting yourself. When we say God fights you, it's you that you are fighting yourself. God never wants anything bad for anyone. So when I am doing something bad to myself and I think I am disobeying God, God says you are fighting me and I am fighting you. What does it mean? It means that you are fighting yourself. So you are fighting yourself. Not only in the case of God, even in many other cases. If I am unjust to you, in the first place, I am unjust to myself. So for God or for other people is the same. But sometimes I am unjust to a person, then that person gets angry and does lots of things which may be even wrong to me. In the case of God, it's not that he gets angry, he loses his control, and he says, okay, now you are starting fight, I am going to destroy you and all your children for generations. No, it's not like that.
So the concept of anger and wrath is not attributed to God at all?
No, I said he doesn't lose his control. So when we say he gets angry, it's not like we get angry and lose our control. Anger is an action of quality, sifat fi'l. So when something doesn't comply with Allah's will, we say God is angry with this. Not that God gets emotional and his reason and intellect doesn't work. And because he has all the power, imagine if God gets angry in the way that we get angry, with all the power he has.
So the concept by now here, that God is angry.
Yes. So it means that they have done something against Allah's will. So Allah is displeased with them.
So you again refer the concept of anger to the man himself, not God.
Sure. So it's up to us to decide whether God is going to be pleased with me or displeased with me. It's like sun is shining. You want to remain under sun or you want to go in a room and deprive yourself from sun. Sun has no problem with you. God has no problem with anyone. You make yourself either a person who is pleasing to God or a person who is displeasing God. It's up to you.
So the attribution of anger by itself and in its nature can be attributed to God.
In this meaning, it's a quality of action. So it's abstracted from the relation between servant of God and God. When a servant of God is doing something against God's will, we abstract the concept of ghazab.
But in the Quran we have the concept of ghazab, maybe or fight from Allah. When a person gives a rebel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, so you are fighting, not God fighting you.
So Allah defends him himself.
No, I'm saying that we can say God is fighting back, but in a sense you are doing this to yourself. Like what? If, for example, flood is coming, so lots of water is coming, and I go against it, so the flood also come against me. But is really flood coming against you, or it's that you put yourself in that condition? So you can say, yes, flood is now against you and it's going to kill you. But this is not the problem with flood. It's you that with your bad choice and decision, you have put yourself in that condition. So we have to blame ourselves, not the flood. And example of Allah is much different than flood, because flood, brings in our mind, destructiveness of the flood. And here it's not that. It's like a river or something. But just as an example.
Excuse me. After here you said that we have two guidance and misguidance. If one has taken taken the first step in guidance and misguidance, Allah does the guidance or misguidance on the second step. But in some verses we have, Allah says, يُضِلُّ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. It doesn't say that I will guide those who have taken the first step in guidance. It says يُضِلُّ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ.
What does man yasha mean?
The pronounce refers to person.
What does man yasha mean?
Those who are qualified.
Yeah, we always say man yasha means those who are qualified. Because Allah's will is not arbitrary.
Another interpretation said, man yasha, that person wants to be.
Yeah, but sometimes it says وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَنْ يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. So you cannot say it means that person, it's God himself. But still it's clear that God's will is not arbitrary. So, remember this sentence. God never treats equals unequally. And never treats unequals equally. This is something that helps you a lot. It's impossible that he treats equals unequally or unequals equally. So if a person is guided, another person is misguided, there must be a difference between them.
Excuse me about what you said about the natural progress of misguidance. Can we refer to a verse in Surah Al-Zumar? Allah describes Quran as ma, anzala min as-sama'i ma'an fasabat bihi al-ghadariha. Allah said this is Quran, the guidance. And we have in that in Surah Al-Zumar when the disbelievers in hell they're in that condition and they see that believers have water and some sustenance Allah has given them. They say, give us some of this water what Allah has given you. They say, Inna Allah harramakuma ala al-kafirin. Allah has forbidden this water for disbelievers. Why? Because this hurts you, as it was the same in the world, in the dunya. And in dunya, water was harmful for you. They gave you a lot of water, but there was a problem with you. This water that gives light, gives life to everyone, and hayah, it was dangerous for you because you had a bad reaction to it. And now Allah has given you fire. Fire is a greater purifier.
This part is not Quranic. This is, I think, this part that fire is given to them because it's purifying them and water is not given to them because it's harmful for them. Can you argue this from the Quran?
Yes.
How?
فَمَا يَزِيدُ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا خَسَارًا. What is the first part of the verse?
No, this is in dunya.
وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ
نُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ وَلَا يَزِيدُ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا خَسَارًا. This is what I was explaining.
Yeah.
But this doesn't mean that in Akhirah water is not given to them because it's harmful for them. I'm not rejecting that, but I said, how do you argue for this?
It seems that this is another side. The water is another side of this guidance. Because, hell is not a revenge. The fire of hell is not a revenge that Allah is going to take revenge. It's a process of purifying them, yes?
So why some people remain there forever?
Because they never become purified.
So what is the point in
Because
purifying
the
them?
problem with them.
So what is the point in purifying someone who is never becoming pure? So you trouble him with all the pain and he never becomes pure.
They are in the process, the problem in their own self. That they don't change.
So what's the point if you are not changeable? Some mystics say this, but I don't know how can we argue for this from the Quran. Even some people say these people have a nature which is suitable with fire, and therefore they enjoy being in hell. Some mystics even say this. They say because these people themselves have a fiery nature, so when they are put there, they don't suffer, they enjoy. So Allah is not, bringing any pain to them. So it looks beautiful, but it doesn't really seem to be acceptable. I think even those who are in hell, although this is result of their own action or manifestation of their own, but still they suffer. In the same way that in dunya, a person who has bad akhlaq suffers. You shouldn't think that these people in dunya didn't suffer. You shouldn't think Pharaoh didn't suffer. I think Pharaoh suffered in dunya also.
It's not against suffering, it's against being prepared for their revenge.
Pardon?
I didn't say that they don't suffer, they suffer.
No. I said some people say this. Some people, to justify how Allah
They say, as long
accepts
as
to put some people in hell, they say because these have such a nature that hell suits them.
They say as long as from as and as the street.
Yeah. And I think this is wrong.
Totally, in my opinion, I think that the second level of misguidance is that Allah start to fight the unbelievers. Because when a person start to make misguidance and continue this position and this state, I think Allah start to fight him because of this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَهِّلِ الْكَافِرِينَ أَمْهِلْهُمْ رُوَيْدًا, or سَنَسْتَدْرِجُهُم مِّنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, or إِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَبِالْمِرْصَادِ, or غَيْرَ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ. This level of misguidance is more than the first level. And
Of course, we didn't say it's the same.
Why the difference?
You have a level that you have fire in one room, and you have another level that fire is all over the building. You have a problem that cancer is in one small part of body, and you have level that cancer has spread everywhere. So we are not saying they are the same.
You said that the second level is increasing misguidance only. I think in quality different with the first level. You know, second level is fighting.
Increase can be in quantity and quality.
Both of them.
So if it is in quality, so the quality also can change.
I think the second level is very dangerous.
Of course, even the first level is very dangerous.
Yes, but maybe differ these levels. Maybe we succeed to Tawbah in this first level, but in the second level maybe we
Yes, so sometimes it's get too late. When it's small, you can stop it, but if you let it, grow, then you will never, manage to stop it. Even you may get the stage that you see that you cannot do anything, so even you don't think of stopping this. You even don't think of doing tawbah. Yeah, it's possible.
That
So-
actually becomes a habit of the insan. Like
Yeah.
mubarat, kabair becomes mubarat for them. And we have in Surah Al-Hud, ثم كان عاقبة الذين أساءوا السوء سيئوا. It's the habit of the insan. So, and كذبوا بآيات الله وكانوا بها يستهزئون. This is the verse that Lady Zainab recited when he saw that Yazid started beating the lips of Imam al-Hussein. They heard that guided a lot of people, lots of Jews and Christians saw the shining head of Imam al-Hussein. His head guided them, but Yazid, because of his own bad reaction to his head, it increased in his punishment.
You know, they reached the level of takzib. Takzib.
Denial.
Yeah.
So we have two levels of guidance and we have two levels of misguidance. Of course, every level has its own sub-levels. And another thing that Allama says, in addition to saying that muttaqi means here mu'min, he talks about the concept of Iman a little bit. And he says, Iman comes from amn. Amn means safety and security. Why a mu'min is called mu'min? He says a mu'min is called mu'min lema sorry, he says, كأن المؤمن يؤتي لما آمن به الأمن من الريب والشك. A mu'min gives security and safety, or keeps safe his belief from doubt and denial. So mu'min is a giver of security to the belief. So this is the reason that a mu'min is called mu'min. Allah is called also mu'min. Al-Malik al-Quddus al-Salam al-Mu'min. Why Allah is called mu'min? Because He gives security to us. Yeah? To His servants or His creation. So a mu'min is called, a person who is mu'min is called mu'min because he gives security to his beliefs. He keeps his belief away from raib and shak. This is what Allah says.
In fact, maybe it is vice versa. Our beliefs takes us from crime.
So you are not mu'min, you are mu'man. If you say it in that way, mu'min means you must give safety. I think that's clear, but my little concern is that are we giving security to our belief, or we may say that we are giving security to something else. Allah says we give security to our faith, but if that was the case, so we shouldn't use it with ba. And we say amantu billah, this doesn't fit with saying I am giving security to my belief in God. So it seems that this is not very a strong point that you can make. It's a kind of, a kind of even less than indication. Maybe it's kind of suggestion. Maybe you can say the word suggests this, not even indicates this. It's a kind of ish'ar. You cannot say this is the meaning of Iman, that you are putting yourself as a guardian of those beliefs and you want to secure it. Yeah? And I don't think you find this in any hadith or any verse that amana yu'minu is used in the sense of you giving security to your beliefs. So it can be a kind of suggestion. Some people who speak English, and some people who have done Islamic studies, and I think it's a matter of mostly English, they have made this point, and they say that amana yu'minu is an action. They want to say that the Quranic understanding of Iman is not what normally is thought. Amana means he believes, and believes is an action that you do it. So it's something that you decide to do it. It's not that just having some idea or coming to know or to accept something. It's much more active role is needed. Have you heard this?
Yeah, no, but it's acceptable because in the challenging different choices, I think he decide to choose this way. Yeah, this is Iman.
Yeah. No, we don't have problem that Iman is voluntary. People can decide to be mu'min and can decide not to be mu'min. But I think, again, like what Allama said, this is a suggestion. You cannot really understand this from Arabic, that amana means that he did Iman. Because those people, they say this. They said Iman is an action, and amana means that you do Iman. I don't think you can really say that amana means you do Iman. You don't do Iman. You understand? Doing Iman is, I think, too too much to say that it can be understood from amana yu'minu in Arabic. You have Iman. But they want to say no. You do Iman.
You mean they say that Iman is somehow from Al-Jawarihi, not
Yeah. They want to emphasize that this is an action, that you do it. Anyway.
Some persons may hear about the proofs of existence of Allah. They don't believe or they don't get faith.
Mm.
But after a while, they decide to embrace Islam and Iman. This is extra action here.
So you mean,
Just knowing some ideas, some facts.
so after knowing,
They decide to
believe.
believe.
So they do Iman or they don't.
A mental act, a mental decision.
It
This is a
seems
mental act.
it's kind of an action of heart.
Yeah.
Thinking.
The question is, what is Iman? There are different views among Muslim scholars. Some say Iman is declaration. Some say Iman is to believe in your heart and to declare and to do, actions. It seems that Iman is submission. Iman is taslim. When you submit yourself, commit yourself to something, you don't oppose it, you don't reject it, or you don't even deny it, this is Iman. And as you said, it's different from knowledge, because you may have knowledge, but still you oppose. To have knowledge or not knowledge is not always in your hand. Yeah? If something happens here in front of my eyes, whether I want or not, I come to know that. I cannot stop knowing that. Yes, sometimes I can avoid knowing something by not studying, the things that lead to that knowledge. And here it becomes somehow voluntary. But otherwise, knowledge itself is not voluntary. You have a very passive role. But submission is very much active. You have to have active role. So Iman is to submit yourself to that truth. Okay? So this is voluntary. I can say I do submit myself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example. But the question is, can we say that in the verb amana yu'minu, exactly the meaning of submission is involved? So that amana means aslama or sallama, or amana means he achieved a quality, a condition, and that condition depends on having that commitment. You know what I'm saying? So it's mostly perhaps a technical discussion, not very much making difference in reality.
What's your opinion?
My opinion is that your voluntary role, your active role, is to submit yourself or not to submit yourself. So if you submit yourself, then we say this person is mu'min, but we don't mean by mu'min a doer of something. We mean that now you are in a condition that you are recognized as mu'min. So here is a recognition involved.
So if Iman is a voluntary action.
Maybe we can use this example. I didn't think about it, but maybe this example also is good. You can learn. You learn and learn and learn. This is your voluntary role. But when someone is alim, you say, this person is alim, mashallah. So, this being alim is not something that you do it. I say, alim is a person who is doing ilm. You don't do ilm. You have done learning, you have done, studying, and but now you reach a condition that you are recognized as alim.
This is a kind of ability that it's a kind of act of mind, maybe.
What? Mu'min?
Yeah, and alim. For example, a child of Muslim, we count him Muslim, but we don't call him mu'min. But when he
in kalam we call him mu'min, because in kalam when we say iman is the same as Islam. When they talk about iman, or for example whether murtakib kabira, the one who is doing major sin, is kafir or mu'min. Yeah, no. In kalam, iman means to enter into religion.
Yeah, when he achieves to the age of adultery and he thinks about God and other religious things, and he achieves a kind of quality of faith, we call him mu'min, because of this kind of...
So you cannot even call him Muslim from a theological point of view. You recognize him, you recognize a 2-year-old, for example, child as Muslim. This is a legal recognition. Otherwise, from a kalami point of view, before having maturity and understanding, he is neither Muslim nor kafir.
We call him mu'min or not. We call him Muslim, but we don't call him mu'min.
Yeah, you can call him anything you like, but this is not, from a theological point of view, he is not a person who has embraced faith. This person is not responsible. So, whether he is Muslim because his parents are Muslims, or whether he is kafir because his parents are kafir, they can be as good as each other. Because that child is innocent. You cannot say because his parents are Muslim, so he is a better child than a person, a just newborn baby whose parents are kafir.
No, I don't want to say this point.
You don't want, but you are saying this.
No. I want to say that doing of thinking after the achieving to the adultery age.
Not adulthood.
Adulthood, yeah, actually. Adulthood, I think it is a kind of doing.
After.
Yeah. After achieving the age of adult.
Yeah, but what do you do? Do you do iman or do you do taslim? Do you submit yourself or you do iman? I said in reality it doesn't make difference, but I think this is a technical issue that we don't do iman. We do taslim and then we are recognized as mu'min.
I think it depends on our definition of action.
Mm.
Doing.
Yeah.
Excuse me. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu,
Mm.
amanu alayya, amanu what he asks from us? He asks from us to do something. Amanu, do iman, okay?
Is it necessarily doing something or can be having something? When he says ittaqu, what does it mean? Do taqwa? Do you do taqwa? Ittaqullah, what does it mean?
Do something, and if you do something, you can you are baptized.
Yeah.
So
So taqwa is a condition. We cannot say I do taqwa. Although from a linguistic point of view, we say ittaqa, yattaqi, so it's an action. But this is linguistic. From a philosophical point of view, you are not doing taqwa.
But these conditions are abstracted from some action, some doing. We do something according to taqwa and we abstract from this.
Yeah, like you do learning and then some condition emerges. So you do something and then you have the condition of taqwa. But I don't think we can say I do taqwa.
What's the benefit of this discussion?
yeah, it is
No, they want to make many things out of this. Even some of our speakers, they do this,
And of course, Iman has different meanings and different levels. Some levels, maybe we can say that it is kind of action. But some levels, we can say that it is action like or is harm.
So is it level of Iman or these are requirements for Iman? That's the question.
Iman has
So it seems that there's requirements. Okay, so we have two different levels, major levels of Iman and two major levels of misguidance. And then Allama Tabatabai talks about ghaib. يؤمنون بالغيب. What is ghaib? Ghaib is opposite to shahada. Something that we can witness. Yeah, we call it shahada. Something that I cannot witness, we call it ghaib. So it's dependent on us. So we call Allah is ghaib, and for example, this world is shahud because I can see what is in this world and I cannot see Allah. Or angels for us are ghaib because we cannot see angels. So it's a human way of classifying things. Okay? And Allah is using our language, human language. Otherwise, for example, if you are an angel, for an angel, then angels are not ghaib. For an angel, angels are shuhud. Yeah? And perhaps for them, even Allah is shuhud, because they don't have problem in understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for Allah himself also, everything is shuhud. So, to be ghaib is not a quality of existence. It's an epistemological condition for the knower, not for the known. So it's something about my knowledge, my understanding, my perception. Of course, it has something to do also with what is known, but there is a combination. So if what is known is physical, material, for me, it's shuhud. If something is immaterial, for me is ghaib. So there is a difference between the two, but also part of it is because of my way of understanding things. If you change the knower, everything can become shuhud. Okay? You have a question?
Yes. Does that mean that the imams are not included in this verse? They're not part of Al-Ladina yu'minuna bil-ghaib, the imams and the prophets, because for them, the ghaib that is lost is shahada for them.
Okay, so when we say ghaib, we can use it for every person, or we can use it in a general way. So imams who can see the angels, still we may say angels are ghaib, not because of that person, for general condition. We say no'i or shakhsi. So sometimes it can be no'i. It means that it's ghaib for mankind in general. And sometimes we use it for every person. So it depends. When Allah says yu'manuna bil ghaib, He uses in a general way. It means for humanity, for man, these are the things that man cannot see or touch or smell. Therefore, these are ghaib.
So everything related to metaphysics, yes?
Not only metaphysics, a combination of metaphysics and epistemology. Either you have to improve your understanding so that everything for you becomes shuhud, or on the day of judgment, when the veils are removed, again everything becomes shuhud. We don't have ghaib on the day of judgment. Yeah, everything is shuhud. So we shouldn't think that to be ghaib is only a quality of certain things, and this means that certain things must always be ghaib. No, it's for certain knowers. Also, we shouldn't think that this is a matter of being in a lower condition. Indeed, anything which is ghaib is in higher levels of existence. And because it's too high, we cannot understand them through our perception. Either we have to improve in dunya or in akhirah so that we can understand them. So if we say Allah is ghaib, we shouldn't think that it is something, negative.
And again, according to the Islamic philosophy, something which it is more known, it must be more non-material. Because material makes everything knowing. You understand me? In Islamic philosophy, materials that makes everything ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
And everything which comes far from material and becomes ghaib, it can be known.
Ghaib is different from immaterial. The meaning of ghaib is not immaterial, but it relates to that. But
Why immaterial means material here means everything which can be seen.
no, these are related. Material doesn't mean something that can be seen, but something which is material can be seen, and always not necessarily.
You can have a knowledge to this even by hearing the voice, even by seeing everything.
Yeah, so these two correlate, but they are not the same. To be material and to be something that can be perceived by senses are not the same thing. But normally they come with each other. But even you can have material things that you cannot perceive, like, for example, waves, macro waves. You cannot see them, you cannot hear them, but still they are there. Or even there are colors that we cannot see, or sounds that we cannot hear. So it doesn't mean they are not material. They are material, but still we cannot perceive them. So these are not the same thing. Most of the time they are coming with each other.
So this supports your idea that something which it is ghaib, it doesn't show that it is smaller or its value is low. It shows that maybe we can have a more knowledge to this.
So something which is ghaib can be better, can be stronger. Yeah. Okay, so this is the concept of ghaib. It's relative. Because as we said, something that for us is ghaib, for Allah or for angels is not ghaib.
What about God himself?
For God there is no ghaib.
So it's absolute.
No, the concept is relative. But for God, everything is absolutely shuhud.
Okay, so it can be absolute at the same time.
The concept is general.
But we have like God, and if we can do it, we can equate to God, so it is absolute.
No, because it's mushtarak ma'navi, so therefore it's relative. In the same sense, it is used for God, it's used for us. The meaning is the same. But for God, it doesn't apply. For us, it applies. Not that the meaning is changed.
When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says ghaib wa shahada, I mean he means ghaib for ordinary.
General. Mankind in general condition.
Maybe one can achieve some level.
Yes. Okay. Then there is a philosophical discussion about this ghaib. That Allama Tabatabai Rahmatullah Alayhi refers to the ideas of some philosophers, some positivists who had the idea that we can only rely on perceptual knowledge, on something that we can understand through our senses and perception. We cannot have any rational or intellectual knowledge. And this is an idea that was very much favored in the West in 16th, 17th, even maybe 18th century. But no longer people support this. In that time, they were very much after empirical knowledge. So they were saying rational knowledge is not good and empirical knowledge is bad. So our ulama, to attack them, they say there are problems with empirical knowledge also. So one way of attacking them is this. Of course, they also try to defend rational knowledge. But today, there is no need to attack empirical knowledge because they have already given up their trust in empirical knowledge. So today, they don't believe in empirical knowledge and in rational knowledge. They don't believe in any type of certainty. So today, we are in a very difficult condition. So many people in the West, they believe that we cannot have really knowledge. And we cannot be sure about anything, especially after postmodernism. So there is no certainty at all in any area. So this is a very difficult condition that we have in philosophy today. So you have to be really able to struggle to show that you can prove something. But in the past, it was easier because they believed in empirical knowledge. So we say, why you believe in empirical knowledge? This by itself needs a rational backup. Yeah. When you say every empirical knowledge, is, for example, reliable or true, so we say, okay, this by itself is a rational judgment. You have never, understood this by seeing or hearing. Okay? But today, they say, yes, we accept. So we give up everything, and we don't believe in any type of knowledge. So that's a big problem. But what is important is that all these are academic discussions. Otherwise, whether in that century or today, no one doubts human knowledge. They rely on reason and they rely on perception and they do their things normally. So a scientist today doesn't differ from a scientist 3 centuries ago. They both trust perception and rational knowledge. Although when you study philosophy of science, it's very much different. Today, a philosopher of science can be very much close to the Sufists. Even they say that not only, some of them say, not only we cannot prove anything to be true, we cannot even say that by putting evidence together, we get closer to the truth. We can never reach the truth. We cannot even say that we are getting closer to the truth. People like Popper, they say that the maximum we can say that what we have said is not yet falsified. This is the maximum. So to be scientific is just enough to be falsifiable and not yet falsified. So they have given up the hope for even getting closer to the truth. But the practice of science is the same. The practice of philosophers is still the same. So everyone deep in his heart believes in human ability to understand things with reason and with senses. Of course, we today, more than perhaps people in the past, we know that there are areas that we make mistakes. Our senses can make mistake, or sometimes in our thinking we can make mistake. But what is important is that deep in our heart we know that there is no systematic problem without perception or without reason, because mistakes are accepted. Everyone accepts mistakes. But those people say there is a systematic problem. It means that they can never work properly. There is no way to reach the reality. So it's a very complicated issue, but let's refer to what Allama says here. So Allama says that, is it possible to depend and to rely on things other than perceptual knowledge? And he says this is something which is very much discussed and controversial among mutaakhirin, those who are recent thinkers, and he means 16th, 17th, 18th century. And then he says that the great philosophers had the idea that we can have rational knowledge, in addition, of course, to the senses, for example, but even they were saying that our knowledge through perception without backup of reason cannot bring certainty. For example, something that happens is that if you see that in many, many cases water boils when it reaches 100 degrees centigrade, can you make a law and say always or all water, types of water boils at this degree? If there is no rational backup, if there is no philosophical rule, you cannot say because I have seen this many, many times, so this is going to happen every time. This is the problem with istiqra, with induction. So philosophers used to say that we have to add something rational to this, and that when something is happening by accident or by chance cannot happen all the time or most of the time. This is قاعدة اتفاقية. الاتفاقية لا يكون دائميا أو أكثريا. If something is happening most of the time, so it cannot be by chance. If something happens maybe few cases, yes, it can be chance. So they use a rational argument to support their, sensual knowledge and come up with a rule. Otherwise, in science, you cannot have any universal rule. Nothing can be universal. Even if you can try and experience over all different cases which exist, you cannot say tomorrow will be the same. We need another principle, and that is the principle of uniformity of nature. So you have to believe that nature acts consistently. Otherwise, maybe so far nature has worked like this and tomorrow will act in another way. You cannot stop this possibility by any perceptual knowledge. So there are many problems with those who want to refute any rational judgment and still believe in empirical or scientific, universal laws. And also Allama says that in the same way that there are mistakes in rational judgments, there are also mistakes in empirical knowledge. Sometimes we see something which can be an illusion. Sometimes we think we are hearing something, it can be an illusion. So you cannot say all the mistakes are for rational judgment. There are also mistakes in perceptions. The other thing is that to be able to discern between true and false is something which is needed in all different types of understanding. And we don't have any doubt about this. But even for empirical knowledge, you need to be equipped with some way to discern between what is true and what is false. So it's not only for the rational judgment. And then he mentions this universal rational law of al-ittifaqi. And finally, something which is very important is, he says, by perception, we can only know particulars, juz'i. We have particular and we have universal. Juz'i wa kulli, which is different from juz o kull. Juz o kull means part and compound. But juz'i and kulli. So we have particular and we have universal. In Hess, you only understand particulars which are changeable. And in science, we always need universals. Because we want to generalize, we want to be able to predict. Something which is very important in science is ability to predict. If you cannot predict, you cannot use science for technology. You have to be able to predict. If you want, for example, to send a plane into air, okay? So we have to be able to realize what is going to happen to this plane at that speed, at that height, okay? This predictability is very important. Or if you want to have, for example, I don't know, satellite or whatever, everything depends on predictability, and that needs universality. If there is no universality, you cannot predict something. But this cannot be guaranteed by senses, by seeing and touching. This all need something more. So I don't think it's a very difficult discussion to say to people that empirical knowledge is not enough. Today, this has become very obvious that empirical knowledge is not enough. The main thing is to say that we need rational judgment to be able to have science, and those who are against rational judgment, they have their own way of, arguing against this. They say, yes, we need to predict, but this predictability doesn't need to be necessary or 100%. If you know that something has so far worked, so you can make a device using on the current experience and send it, because the chance of change of the laws is very little. So we are not after logical certainty. Sometimes we have logical certainty, sometimes we have psychological certainty. For us, psychological certainty is enough in our day-to-day life. It is philosophers, role to emphasize on logical certainty. Anyway, I don't think this is the time that we go into this epistemological discussion, but just to say what Allama has said about the significance of rational judgment first, and second, that perceptual knowledge is not always reliable. So those who say we only believe in God if we can see God, we can tell them this is not necessary first, and second, this is not a sign of being good knowledge if you can see something. Indeed, when you can see something, you can make big mistakes.
They don't say it's good or bad. They say, how can we know that there is a God?
No, they say we only believe in God if we can see God, or we can see God in laboratory.
They say we can't see
Why?
God, so how can we believe
No, why do they say this?
Because if we want to believe in God, if we want to accept His do's and don'ts, we have to be sure about it.
Yeah, no, that's not a problem. If someone says, if someone says, I don't believe in God unless I know that God exists, we don't have a problem with that. We say, I am like you. I don't believe in God unless I know about His existence. But if they say, I only know God when I see God, this is a big problem, and Allama's discussion can refute that. Why you think that perceptual knowledge is the only knowledge which is valid? There is no reason to say that empirical knowledge is the only knowledge which is valid.
Because this is 100% sure. But when you don't see something and you just...
But why?
No, you see...
Why it's sure? Even this empirical knowledge by itself requires lots of intellectual knowledge.
Okay, no, you don't deny it, but when you...
No, they deny it.
When you see a phenomenon, when you see a phenomenon, and you know that this is taking place, and you somehow want to justify it. Okay, you justify it this way, others justify it, and rationalize it in other way. So, this is true that there's a phenomenon, but your justification is just to satisfy your own self. How can you say this is right, this is 100% true? Correct.
No, first, we have to understand what is underlying this position. When someone says, I only believe in something that I can see, so there is something underlying. And that is, this person thinks that only perceptual knowledge is accepted. So we question that. So we say, first, perceptual knowledge by itself needs to be supported by reason. And second, there are many mistakes in perceptual knowledge. So if you have given up following intellectual knowledge because of mistakes, you have discriminated against intellectual knowledge and have sided with empirical knowledge, although both of them suffer from the same problem. Okay? So by raising several questions, then that person would not be able to say, I don't believe in God, because I cannot see God. Yes, he can say, I have problem with believing in God. You have to tell me why I should believe in God. Okay, this is good. We can discuss with him. But someone says, I don't believe unless I see. This closes this discussion because we cannot show him God. So we have to say this argument is not correct because no one can show them God. So you first try to change their position from certainty to doubt, and then you can bring arguments. Okay, so inshallah for the next session we have another discussion about knowledge, and then there's a discussion about i'jaz, about miracles. So if you can study these two discussions, so it would be very helpful. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.